episode of the love child of Randy Jones, Tony Gwynn, Dave Winfield, Trevor Hoffman, and craft beer called Padres and Pints. It's not called Pints. It's called Padres and Pints. I am Rip, aka SD Pods 1. With me, as always, is Bo, aka Bo-Town. And behind the camera is the mysterious Avenger-in-Chief.
Good morning.
We are here in El Cajon, California at the El Cajon Brewing Company. We'll get to know them more a little bit later on. Now, normally, we have a guest with us, but today we decided to ride solo.
Can you guys keep it down? I'm trying to have a drink.
Oh, well, it's Corey Brock from Padres.
Hey, Corey Brock.
Rick, how's it going?
Good, cheers.
Cheers. You care to join us for a little Padre talk?
Let's talk baseball.
Let's do it.
Thank you for joining us, Corey. We're here to talk a little bit about the future of Padres baseball, because to understand your future, you need to know where you've been. So we need to start with the past. Let's look to the 2011 baseball season for the San Diego Padres and what occurred.
Coming off a 90-win season in 2010, the Padres were full of promise. Going into 2011, they still had a solid bullpen, solid rotation, and just enough hitting to get by in the weak National League West. What the heck went wrong in 2011?
No, that's a good question. I think one thing people don't really recognize is that the 2010 team overachieved quite a bit. And I think people inside the building down there on Park Boulevard, while they might not be willing to admit that publicly, I think they sort of realized that a lot of good things happened in 2010. The run prevention thing was so good. Pitching, defense, just enough hitting, as you said. You know, baseball's funny. It's a cyclical sport. You know, you're up, you're down. Some moves pay off, some don't. Some years you have Orvie Torrealba fall in your lap a week before spring training. You know, I just think there wasn't enough offense. They got buried early. Couldn't get out of that hole they had in April. Really struggled to score runs, and just never really quite recovered. You know, by the time we got to the All-Star break, we got to the point of selling off pieces. Mike Adams to get a couple of attractive players for the future. So, you know, it's just one of those years that kind of catches up to you a little bit. But I think maybe the success of 2010, the 90-win season, maybe set fans up a little unrealistically for what 2011 happened.
Despite it being such a terrible season, there had to have been some bright spots. What were some of those bright spots?
Oh, a couple of them actually. And, you know, terrible season, you know, 91 losses, I guess that qualifies certainly. It's not 130 losses, but, you know, I think you saw some pretty exciting things. Cameron Maben, for one, I think we have to give a nod to Jed Hoyer for making a pretty smart deal. I'm still not sure what the Marlins were thinking with that one, giving up on then a 23-year-old young athletic outfielder, but boy, he looked awfully good.
For relief pitchers? Yeah. Sounds kind of familiar. It does, actually.
Isn't it crazy to just be giving up, potential everyday players for relievers? It's crazy.
Who does that?
Yeah, moving on.
No, but I think Cameron Maben, great fit at Petco Park, especially in that big center field out there. And I think he's still improving with the bat. You know, you look at the stolen bases. I think there's a lot to like there. Corey Lukey, for me, was another guy that took a big step, and I think it really handled him smartly in 2011, letting him start in the bullpen, get some innings there, get some confidence, work on some pitches and things like that. And by the time he joined the rotation, he was dynamite. So I look for some big things from him in 2012.
Definitely. So moving forward, let's talk about the present of the Padres. Some may argue that they've had the busiest offseason in all of baseball. They have a new GM and just a flurry of trades. Why don't you give us a breakdown of some of the most notable trades that they've made this offseason?
Geez, I should probably check my phone to make sure he hasn't made 3 or 4. Josh Burns hasn't made 3 or 4 trades in the time that we've been standing here. But pretty interesting. I think the biggest one, of course, is trading Matt Latos, a young pitcher with a lot of people feel still has a lot of upside. To the Cincinnati Reds for what I think was a real dynamic prospect package. Again, prospects. And you also got a guy to replace him, at least in body, in Volquez. So you're not completely naked in that regard in the rotation. But I think the industry kind of took note of that, just realizing that this is what you could potentially get for a young kind of dynamic pitcher. Great. I think it's a very good trade. I think yonder, a Alonso's going to be a nice fit at first base. The catcher, Grandel, with a little bit more minor league time. You can never have enough depth, in my opinion, going up the middle. Catcher, shortstop, center field. Good athletic defensive players. And, it's just so hard to draft and develop those guys. Boxberger, the reliever, I think, probably start in the minors, but I think he could be a future 8th, maybe 9th inning guy. I guess that's all four for one. Dynamic package. The Carlos Quentin trade does give you a right-handed bat with some power, and I know we could debate what that means for Petco Park, but I truly believe you have to judge all these guys separately, that you can't really pigeonhole, well, it didn't work for Ryan Ludwig. Well, that has no bearing at all on Carlos Quentin. This is a guy with right-handed pull power, and as Bud Black, is kind of wont to saying, there's a home run in this ballpark. And I think it'll be a nice fit, but, it's going to be an adjustment for him. Playing at home too, I think, in front of your family and stuff adds a little pressure, but this guy's a professional. Yeah, I like the deals. To run through all 7 of his trades would probably take us like 3 hours here. So, but those are the ones. Those are the ones I like the most.
Yeah, the Matt Lato still really set the table for the West to go down, I believe.
Well, across the industry, I mean, we just saw the other day the Mariners and the Yankees pulled off a pretty dynamic trade. Michael Pineda going to New York for Jesus Montero, who's supposed to just be a dynamite, offensive player. But hey, it goes to show that, and I think it's important for the Padres. They're always going to have to be active in the trade market because it's always going to be tough for them to sign free agent position players to come to Petco Park. It's a really tough sell unless you kind of get that right guy that's kind of team oriented and the ballpark sort of fits his skill set. Guys that have worked well in the past, Jerry Hairston Jr. just as an example. Guys that kind of bring you a lot of different things, versatility, are willing to kind of put the team first and not worry about offensive numbers. And that's tough in today's day and age. There's a lot of money to be made out there, and let's be honest, it's made on statistics. So whether you like it or not, We got a question?
Yep. I got a question for you, Corey. It's a big hypothetical question, but what if last year Brad Hopp isn't as bad as he was, and we don't bring up Rizzo early in the season, and so he doesn't have those struggles, and then maybe we don't see him until September when he's a September call-up, and at that point, maybe he struggles in September like he did anyway. Does Josh Burns make that trade for Alonso? Does he make that Latos trade? Big hypothetical for you here.
No, I think that's a good point. Let's put it this way. Let's say Anthony Rizzo stayed in AAA the entire season, okay? And in last season, and maybe he had 370 with, 50 home runs in that league. And I should point out the disparity between AAA, the Pacific Coast League, and the major leagues has never been bigger than it is right now. I've had scouts tell me this, and so I kind of caution fans that when you look at those stats, let's realize there's a lot of factors here. Bad pitching, ballparks at high altitudes, Colorado Springs. I think you could probably get 30 home runs there. You've got 20. But no, he's scrappy. No, so I think you have, and hard infield's a lot of factors that go into it. So, that's a good question. And the last memory, major league talent evaluators, front office people, scouts, the last memory they have of Anthony Rizzo is of him struggling at the major league level. And I think that's important to know, that you can't dismiss what he did in AAA, but you can't dismiss what he didn't do at the big league level. So, yeah, if he stayed in AAA the whole year, maybe you probably don't make that trade, or if you do, maybe you get a little bit more in return. But I really think that they liked Alonso's skill set, that he could drive the ball to all fields, quality makeup guy, could be good defensively there, probably not as good as Rizzo, but and then the other parts that were in the trade, it's just too good to pass up. Does that answer that? Was that a hypothetical answer?
I think that hypothetical answer works. And you know what? The name Yonder, I think, goes a long way. I mean, I think you can build around that name, just the first name.
Wild Blue Yonder?
Blue? Yeah, I guess blue.
In 2011, I felt the number one, besides not having that offensive punch, was our lack of catching depth, especially in the backup catcher role, which I think is an essential part, a very important part of the Padres offense and defense. In the offseason, I believe we pulled off an amazing trade for a guy known as John Baker. Picking up from the Marlins for Wade Walk. Can you give me a little feedback on that trade?
Well, I think you're in your long-winded question there, Bo. I think
Very long-winded.
you hit the nail on the head with. Well, I think a lot of fans are like, wow, who cares who the backup catcher is?
Right.
Well, Nick Hundley, who the Padres are very high on. I think he's a very good player and will continue to get better. And he seems on the disabled list twice last year. And you just cannot be naked at that position. I think I touched on earlier that you have to be strong up the middle. You don't want to be naked at catcher, at shortstop. Those are just two very premium positions. And sure, you could fill somebody in there in body, but you don't want to be lacking in that area. Those positions are so crucial. So I think the acquisition of Baker is a good one. It allows the Padres to, on days when Nick Hundley needs a day off, a Sunday day game after a Saturday night game, something like that, to get a guy in there that can handle the staff well, pretty good defensively, and can also swing a left-handed bat. I think he can do some nice things. And you end up using your backup catcher and your backup shortstop far more than you ever think you will or want to. We could look last year. I'll use the Hundley analogy was a good one with Rob Johnson, how much he played. That was probably more than the Padres wanted.
Right.
Alberto Gonzalez, so I thought was a good fill-in, good defensive shortstop. On days when Jason Bartlett will need a day off. I just think you don't want those. You don't want your backup catcher or your backup shortstop losing games for you. That's it's such a vital spot, and the catcher is such a volatile position. I mean, things can happen. Guys can be prone to injury there. And you're just so involved in everything that happens that I think it's good to have a little depth there.
Depth. I think that's one thing with low payroll teams is that they lack depth because they can't afford it. Because they're throwing all their money into their starting lineup and they don't have enough bench to cover the whole 162 game season. So we got John Baker. That was an A+ move by Josh Burns. Also, what about Mark Kotze? Free agent signing Mark Kotze.
Yeah, I think I think it's no secret that Mark's getting toward the end of his career here, but a professional guy that brings a lot to the clubhouse. We hear the chemistry thing, and I think a lot of fans kind of scoff at that. But believe me, it's important. It plays a role. It's not something you can quantify. And Mark Kotze's clubhouse presence will mean 3 more victories. You can't quite quantify it that way, but it truly makes a difference. And I think he's going to give you a nice bat off the bench, a guy that can play a little first, play a little outfield, but mostly, remember how good Matt Sayers was in that role coming off the bench a couple of years ago, and I think that's sort of how they envision Mark working. A little late inning, not necessarily thunder, but a guy that is a professional, knows how to work his way through an at-bat, and can give you a good at-bat there, whether it be a hit or a walk, or maybe set the table for something else.
You touched on it too, was the leadership qualities of Mark Kotze. Another thing is we lost Heath Bell. He was really our clubhouse guy for 2011. Once we lost Adrian, someone had to take the role. Heath Bell kind of took over in 2011. Now with Bell gone, we don't really have that leader for 2012. Do you think Mark Kotze could fill that role, or do you think there's another player that can step into that to be a leader among the players?
Yeah, that's fair. I think Kotze is a good guy. I think Carlos Quinton is another guy, even though this will both be their first years here with this group. Kotze obviously haven't played here long before. Well, I wonder, some of these rookies in the clubhouse, how old they were when Mark played here.
I remember back in the day.
Yeah, probably 8 years old or something like that.
I still have my Kotze shirtsy.
You should have won that today. No, but I think those two guys. I think Quinton is a guy that's really kind of hard-nosed, a real grinder, a gamer. And I think some of the young guys could watch him and really learn from him. There's some other guys in there. Chase Headley's a guy that's been around for a while and has sort of learned from other guys in the clubhouse. He was here when Trevor was here and Heath was here. You pick up on little things, and you don't become a leader overnight. And being a leader isn't always, and it seldom is like standing up on the couch in the clubhouse and beating your chest saying, "Hey guys, we need to do this." It's kind of learning and watching how a guy prepares for a game, prepares for an at bat, handles his business, how early he gets to the ballpark, taking extra batting practice. So it's more of that. So when you hear clubhouse leadership, chemistry, it's more of that. It's not anything too demonstrative where, the Bull Durham thing where you're running in there and knocking over the tables of pizzas or whatever. Was that Bull Durham? Was it the pizza?
That was the infamous lollygagger speech, where they had them go into the shower. I don't think there was pizza involved, but there was the lollygagger speech.
Yeah, it would have been cool if there was pizza involved, probably. But anyway, so that's my little soliloquy on clubhouse leadership.
Okay.
Good.
Let's drink till we fall down. Let's drink, I see you on the ground. Let's drink till we fall down. There's nothing else to do in this town. I gotta tell you, you're the best.